Now that we've had a moment to think about this game, let it marinate a little bit, other than Carson Beck, what are some things that stood out to you? I know, Ro, you got a chance to watch it again.
On the positive side, obviously Mekhi Muse, great for him. What does that say about the Georgia walk-on program? You had Dan Jackson, Cash Jones, Mekhi Muse, all kind of playing roles. Terrell Foster on special teams as well.
Yes.
Georgia does a really good job, bringing in walk-ons. Another positive that I saw is, I thought that, Brock Vandegrift came in and did some really good things. I saw some really clever RPO concepts from Mike Bobo, ones that directly tied back to some of the effective stuff that Todd Monken did last year. It wasn't the same. There were adjustments made. Were little wrinkles applied to it. On the negative side, I tell you what, in real time, I was like, man, I think UT Martin's just kind of crowding the line of scrimmage. Their safeties were playing back, but they were on their front foot and they were flying up against the run. And I'm like, okay, well, what's happening here is they're just kind of gearing up to stop the run. Georgia got beat at the point of attack a few times. Now I think UT Martin was probably, I think they were submarining a little bit, kind of playing underneath blocks and just trying to wreak havoc. I think they were just trying to muddy the waters up underneath there, but it was working, and Georgia didn't really have an answer for it. They weren't really getting anything going to kind of combat it. So I think that, is something that you got to be concerned about a little bit. But I also remember last year, man, I keep going back to it, I know, but even in the Oregon game, man, we can't run the ball. Sanford game, man, we can't run the ball. South Carolina, I'm running the ball a little bit better. Kent State can't run the ball. Missouri can't run the ball for 3 quarters. And then something happened in that Missouri game. Georgia kind of found its stride as a team that could run the football. So I still think the offensive line is going to get better as the year goes on. Cedric Van Pran probably had one of his worst games yesterday as a Bulldog. I thought that of all the guys, I hope that he's able to kind of look at that film and understand some of the things he struggled with. They slanted off of him a lot there in the middle, and he struggled. But those two things probably, that one thing on the negative side probably stood out to me more than others. I'm not going to beat up Dominic Lovett for the drops because, one of them was a guy getting a fist in there on the ball at the perfect time, and the other one was him getting sandwiched between 2 defenders. So I'm not going to beat him up for that. But and then obviously on the positive side, Brock Bowers, he's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was Tyke Smith. I felt like he really kind of had a great game. I felt like he was scrapping through, just looking for contact, looked fast, and was playing well. And they need that at that star position. But you had Janelle Aguero in there too, working as well. And I thought that was great to see 2 guys, kind of handling that role. And it was what you expected. But Tyke looked like a guy who knew, this could be taken away from me. So he played like that. And then for me, CJ Smith was another guy who really had a nice coming out party. And I told people this on the board, kind of consistently all day. What people may forget about CJ Smith, he dealt with some injury, but coming out of high school, 10.28 in the 100-meter, got some size to him as well. That's a guy, you put all the pieces together there. Pretty interesting player, I think, for Georgia. Brings some much-needed size to that room. I thought that was really cool to see as well. Roderick Robinson, with a couple of flashes, also took advantage of his opportunity. So, there were some downsides for sure. I mean, you don't want your secondary leading in tackles, and I think that the 3 leading tacklers were your secondary guys. But that was maybe a function of what they were doing also. So, there was up and down to all of it. Like I said, if Beck's still doing the same things in 4 games to the degree that he did against UT Martin, that's a concern. But overall, I thought it was a good showing for a lot of young guys. AJ Harris played a lot of snaps behind Kamari Lassiter. So
he was in there early.
He was. And almost damn near split it. That cornerback 2 spot, it's seemingly wide open. And they got to rotate those guys in and out of there. So, overall, it was not exactly what people wanted to see. I mean, it wasn't a fireworks show, but I think it was advantageous for Georgia to go in, get that film, and come out of this one and make adjustments next week and see how those numbers compare, see who fits in. And like I said, the snap count next week is going to be, I think, a lot more to consider.
Sorry, I was muted earlier. I haven't done that in a while. Put $1 in the mute jar. Early on in the game, when Georgia's offense wasn't rolling, it became check down or get the ball to Brock Bowers, basically. And that's great that you can do that against UT Martin. Better defenders probably going to be able to lock that down a little bit better than that. Where did Mekhi Muse come from? What is his origin story? Because that guy is motivated. I like that Aaron Murray called him Mighty Mouse. I think Mighty Muse could be a good nickname for the guy.
Yeah,
Central Gwinnett I do like that one.
Central Gwinnett guy, one of the Black Knights, man, out of that
played
program.
in front of a castle at his high school.
Him and Chuck Olive.
Yeah, you love the castle, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
Central Gwinnett
covered a mini of Georgia versus Gwinnett, 7-on-7s over at Castle, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a stellar place to go see a game if you haven't.
Back in the day when Todd Wofford was the head coach there. I don't know where Todd's at now. Not a more lovable coach out there than that dude.
Last I knew, Todd was at Meadow Creek. I don't know if he's still there. But
okay.
Good guy for sure. But Mekhi Muse, man, look, Georgia. I've got an article coming tomorrow, which is that Mekhi Muse, Cash Jones, another feather in the cap, man, for this Georgia walk-on program. If you're a guy with some opportunities to go somewhere and perform, you're probably considering walking on Georgia because there's no lack of opportunity in that way either. So impressive to see, especially for him to deliver game one after all of the hype, from G-Day and from, the offseason. And you wanted to see all of that, man. I think it's going to embolden a lot of guys that are coming down on the commit list too. Jake Rowe and I talked about that a little bit earlier via text message. So check out that article tomorrow. But I did want to get to Eddie from Ackworth saying Ladd, Marcus Rosemead Jack saying, and Dejan being out were factors too. Absolutely. There's no question about it, man. I mean, that shaped everything in a huge way. You're missing, two of your top three receivers and RB1 in my mind going into this season. Kendall had a nice showing.
Definitely your best creator at tailback. Definitely
Absolutely.
Your best. Hey, there's a guy a yard deep in the backfield. Let me make 4 out of this tailback.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that shaped everything as well. And, that was, a negative and probably contributed to some of the negatives. But it was a big factor and, something they'll get corrected, I guess, over the next couple of games, hopefully. Jake Rowe with a note on that this morning, too.
Something I want to circle back to with Beck, though, is the whole check down thing, right? Because that was a big narrative over at DawgsHQ. Is a lot of folks and then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I remember this little swing pass that was designed, like he snapped it, he turned it through the swing pass, or I remember, kind of this 3-step drop, throwing a quick out or whatever. But I didn't really recall the true check downs. So I went back and looked. There was one, I believe, in the second quarter was the first one where he hit Oscar Delp hooking up for 3 yards. So that was his first one. The next 2 came on the 2-minute drive, were to Cash Jones. One of them was a little dump off for 2 yards, and then the other one was was kind of a drag route that Cash Jones had ran over the middle. He picked up 12 yards. And then he checked one down later in the game that didn't really look like a check down from a design standpoint. He had Brock Bowers lining up in the backfield. He ran a flare route. He had Oscar Delp out front. And he looked downfield for a little while before he dumped it off to Bowers, so I counted as a check down. That was 4 out of 31 throws. The main thing I thought was if I had a criticism of the calling of the actual scheme, this is notwithstanding the weird third down handoff where Kendall Milton got hit by 2 guys basically the second he got the ball, or the play that happened before the half with 20 seconds left. I have no idea what happened there. I can't really put that on Mike Bobo or Kirby Smart or Carson Beck. I don't know who made that decision to do that. It looked weird to me. It looked like Kirby was trying to get him to spike it and that he was pissed off about something. It may have been Carson. I really don't know. But other than those 2 things, if you're talking about from a scheme standpoint, the one thing that did kind of jump off the page to me was how conservative it was to get the ball out quick. And I think what they really felt like they could do is, hey, let me get this to this playmaker now with an easy throw and let him make a play. And sometimes that happened. A lot of times it didn't happen. sometimes they didn't make the most of it when it was there, like Dylan Bell on the second play of the game kind of tried to dance around and make something out of something whenever he had probably 8 or 9 yards there. But, all of it's kind of much ado about nothing at this point. But I will say that if you're out there and you think, oh, man, Carson Beck's just checking it down, he's scared to throw the ball, there was probably some timidity there, but he's not checked down Carson just yet.
So what I saw when I was watching, and I might have been watching the wrong thing, it wasn't so much – I didn't view it as Carson looked scared. It just seemed like he was having trouble getting some guys open. And I think that, again, missing Ladd, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint in that offense could have been a factor for sure. And Dominic Lovett looked surprisingly shaky for me in his first game. So expecting some bigger things out of him.